The hallway was darker than usual that morning, and Daniel's heart felt heavy for reasons he could not name. He was a tall man with neat hair and eyes that always seemed to hold a touch of worry. He had woken up before sunrise, restless and full of thoughts he could not shake. The large estate around him was quiet. Outside, the rain was light, tapping softly against the windows, almost like a gentle warning. He walked with purpose, planning to check on a minor leak in one of the guest rooms, a problem reported by the mansion's caretaker the evening before. Normally, he would have sent his employees to do such work, but that day, he felt an odd urge to handle it himself. Perhaps it was a distraction. He needed something to keep him from sinking into his own mind. When he stepped into the guest suite, he expected an empty room or maybe a worker with a toolbox. Instead, he saw a flash of movement near the bed. The overhead light was off, the curtains still drawn, and the only illumination came from a small lamp. He took 2 steps in, looked up, and froze in utter horror. A woman stood by the tall mirror. Her smooth, dark skin reflected softly in the dim light. She was in the middle of changing, a thin t-shirt clutched in her hands. She wore little else. Her eyes met his, and time stood still for a long, uncomfortable moment. The shock in her face was clear. Her mouth opened as though to scream, but the sound did not come out. Daniel's heart began to race. Fear and shame flooded him at once. He had intruded on someone's privacy, and he had no business being in that room. He recognized her face as belonging to a friend of his sister, someone who had come to stay for a few days to help plan an event. He had not even realized she was in that specific guest room. But none of that mattered, because the sight he had just barged in on felt like the worst kind of betrayal. She snatched a robe from the chair, struggling to cover herself. He stumbled, tried to explain, but his words tangled in his throat. I'm so sorry, he finally managed, his voice trembling. The woman stood still, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. She seemed torn between screaming at him, throwing something at him, or bursting into tears. The long second of tension was like a heavy weight on both of them. Daniel held up his hands, showing he meant no harm. His heart was hammering so hard that he felt it echo in his ears. He glanced toward the hallway, planning to turn and run. But something about her presence pinned him to the spot. The softness of her dark eyes, the elegance in her posture, the silent shock that made her mouth tremble. He realized in that instant that he had never seen someone so beautiful in his life. It was not just the outward appearance, though. He would be blind not to notice how graceful she looked. It was the spark in her eyes, and the strong sense of dignity that came from her expression. She tightened the belt of her robe and clenched her jaw. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice trembling with both anger and confusion. Daniel took a deep breath, desperate to maintain his composure. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I was checking on a leak. I didn't know you were in here." She swallowed hard, looked him over, and then looked away. The vulnerability in her face was heartbreaking. It was obvious she felt exposed, scared, and deeply uncomfortable. "Please, go," she whispered, hugging the robe tighter around her. He nodded, stepping back, his eyes never leaving hers. He wanted to say something more, an explanation that would make her feel safe, but he knew no words could undo the intrusion he had caused. He turned on his heel and left, heart pounding with a mix of regret, confusion, and an inexplicable surge of admiration. In the hallway, he pressed his back against the wall and closed his eyes. Never in his life had he felt so drawn to someone he had met under such humiliating circumstances. His mind was racing. He wanted to apologize again and again, yet a part of him was filled with an urge he could not understand. It was a pull toward that woman, a longing to know her name, to hear her voice in a calm moment rather than in panic. But he pushed those thoughts away. The reality of his mistake was too large. He was a millionaire, yes. He expected she would hate him, and maybe she was right to feel that way. What had he done? He felt an ache in his chest, as though he had ruined something precious he did not even know existed until that second. He whispered a single line under his breath. I have to make this right. Daniel retreated to his private study, which was decorated with old paintings, thick carpets, and heavy wooden furniture. He tried to concentrate on paperwork, forcing himself to go through financial reports. But every few minutes, his mind went back to the image of that woman's startled eyes, her dark cheeks turning crimson with embarrassment, her voice faint and quivering. He tapped his pen against the table, biting his lip. Who was she, exactly? His sister Alicia had mentioned that a friend from college would be staying over to help plan a charity ball. Was this the same woman? Had Alicia even told him her name? He could not recall, and that bothered him deeply. It felt wrong not to know. His phone buzzed. It was Alicia calling. He picked it up quickly, heart still racing. Yes, he answered, trying to sound casual. Daniel, good morning, Alicia said cheerfully. Listen, I need a favor. My friend had a bit of a scare earlier today. She said someone walked in on her while she was changing. Daniel pressed his lips together, feeling heat rise to his face. He steadied his voice. Yes, that was me. It was an accident. I had no idea she was in there. A brief pause. Then Alicia sighed. I figured it was you. She's upset, but I think she understands it was a mistake. Still, I'm not sure she wants to stay in that room. She was asking about switching rooms or maybe going to a hotel. His heart sank. The thought of her leaving the estate gave him a chill. He cleared his throat. I can speak to her. Apologize properly. That might help. But tread carefully, Daniel. She's sensitive about her privacy. She's had some bad experiences in the past. She's my best friend, so please make this right. His sister's tone was both concerned and protective. He swallowed. What's her name? He asked softly, realizing with some shame that he had not asked her before. Alicia paused, sounding surprised. It's Cassandra. You really didn't know that? She's been here a day already. I've been out on business, he said. I guess I missed all introductions. Well, now you know. Alicia's voice softened. Please be kind to her. She's wonderful, and I'd hate for this misunderstanding to ruin her stay, okay? Okay, Daniel promised. I'll make sure she's comfortable. They ended the call. He stared at the phone, repeating her name in his mind. Cassandra. Something about it felt powerful and gentle at once. He wondered what her life was like, what her dreams were, who she was beneath that calm exterior. He took a deep breath, stood, and walked to the tall window. He watched them for a while, letting the quiet gloom of the day match the regret he felt inside. He needed to talk to Cassandra, to show her he was not just a careless man with too much money. He wanted her to see his genuine remorse. Most of all, he wanted to see her again, even if only to apologize face to face. And so, despite the knot in his stomach, he left his study and headed toward the second-floor landing. He found Alicia near the top of the stairs, her eyes flicking between the hallway and the door to Cassandra's room. She's in there, Alicia whispered. She's still upset, so be careful. I understand, he said, pressing his hands together to still the tremor in his fingers. Alicia gave him an encouraging nod. Good luck. Daniel stepped forward and gently knocked on the door. He heard a soft sound of footsteps, then silence. He knocked again, more hesitant. Yes? Came a quiet voice from inside. It's Daniel, he managed. May I come in for a moment? I need to speak with you. Another pause. Then the door opened slightly. Cassandra peeked out, wearing a loose blouse and jeans, this time fully dressed, looking cautious. She did not meet his eyes immediately, but after a moment, she pulled the door open wider. Daniel inhaled, stepping into the room. It was still the same guest suite, but now the lights were on, and the curtains were partially open. The pale light from outside mixed with the soft glow from the lamps, giving the room a subdued atmosphere. Cassandra crossed her arms, her posture stiff. She was so poised. "I'm sorry," he began. "I can't say it enough, but I truly am. I never meant to invade your privacy. I was checking on a leak, and I had no idea anyone was here. I should have knocked. I should have." She held up a hand to stop him. "It's fine," she said quietly, though her tone suggested it was far from fine. "Things happen, but it was very uncomfortable, and I'm still shaken." He nodded, struggling to find the right words. "I know. If you want another room, I can have that arranged immediately. Or, if you'd rather stay somewhere else, I'll pay for the best hotel in town. Whatever you need, please just let me know." For a moment, she looked taken aback by his offer. Her arms slowly relaxed at her sides. "Alicia told me you'd say something like that," she said. "She said you tend to overcompensate when you feel guilty." Her words stung a bit, but they were honest. He tried to smile. "She's not wrong." Cassandra tilted her head, examining him. "I don't want a fancy hotel or special treatment," she said. "I just want to feel safe and respected. If I stay here, will I have my privacy?" "Yes," he promised, meeting her eyes. "I'll make sure of it. I'll talk to the staff as well. I'll keep my distance, if that's what you need." She watched him carefully, then nodded. "All right, I'll stay, but let's agree to keep clear boundaries." His chest tightened. The idea of keeping his distance from her sent a strange ache through him, but he understood her request. "Agreed," he said softly. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply stood there, two strangers with an awkward beginning. The sound of rainfall outside filled the silence. Then Daniel bowed his head slightly, excused himself, and left. He was relieved she would stay, but a part of him burned with a sudden longing to see more of who she was beyond that guarded wall. He shook his head, telling himself to be patient. He had intruded on her privacy, and she had every right to be cautious. But in the back of his mind, he could not stop thinking, "I want to know her better." Daniel did not come from a privileged background. That was a detail he often hid beneath tailored suits and polished shoes. He had grown up poor, on the outskirts of a big city, where the only constant was struggle. His father left when he was a child, and his mother worked odd jobs to keep them fed. Daniel learned to be thrifty, clever, and eager to succeed. By the time he was 25, he had sold his first startup for a sizable sum, surprising everyone in his neighborhood. Over the next few years, he honed his skills, invested wisely, and built a network of connections. His fortune grew, and so did his sense of isolation. Each time he bought something he had dreamed of in his youth, a sports car, a large property, a fancy watch, he discovered a hollow feeling inside that did not go away. Now, at 32, he owned this vast estate with many empty rooms. He helped manage charity events, gave to good causes, and tried to distract himself with new projects. His mother had passed away a few years back, leaving him with a quiet sorrow he carried everywhere. Alicia was the only close family he had. He often thought that love, or some genuine connection, might bring him peace. But he did not trust easily. Many people wanted him for his wealth. He had grown suspicious of sudden interests and false flattery. As the years went on, he isolated himself more. That was, until he saw Cassandra. The moment he walked in on her had been embarrassing and horrifying, but it had awakened something in him. It was as if all the defenses around his heart had been shaken loose. Her eyes, so bold yet vulnerable, kept flashing in his mind. Despite his promise to keep his distance, he found himself wanting to see her again, even from afar. The feeling unsettled him, because it was so sudden and powerful, like he was being pulled towards someone whose spirit could match his. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just a reaction to guilt or an overactive imagination. But at night, when he lay in bed, he would stare at the ceiling and think about the fear in her eyes, the curve of her face, the gentle tone of her voice when she accepted his apology. He could not help but yearn for another chance to show her who he really was. Cassandra Jackson was a well-known event planner, someone Alicia had trusted for years. She had put together corporate fundraisers, weddings, and music festivals with grace and professionalism. She took pride in her work, and she had become quite successful in her own right. But Cassandra carried her own pains. She had faced discrimination in her industry, dealt with difficult clients, and once escaped an unhealthy relationship that left her feeling guarded. When Alicia invited her to plan a charity ball at the estate, Cassandra accepted because she trusted Alicia. She expected it to be straightforward, even if it meant being around wealthy patrons who often held unspoken biases. Then came the incident that morning. She felt violated and humiliated. Yet, something in Daniel's eyes made her question her anger. She saw remorse in him, a genuine shame she rarely witnessed in men who assumed their power made them untouchable. It was clear Daniel did not see himself as above consequences. He seemed troubled, almost haunted by her discomfort. She tried to push the memory aside and focus on her work. The ball was scheduled to take place in 2 weeks, and a lot had to be arranged: catering, decorations, invitations, entertainment. She spent the first day after the incident reviewing the layout of the property. She mapped out where the dance floor, tables, and stage would go. She took notes on the best vantage points for photographs, the location of the gardens for cocktails, and how to handle parking for guests. Alicia joined her in the drawing room around noon. They spread out large sheets of paper showing the floor plan. "Thank you for staying, Cass," Alicia said, scribbling a note in the margin. "I know it wasn't the best start, but I promise my brother means well." Cassandra nodded, her eyes focused on a sketched diagram. She tried to keep her voice light. "It's fine. It was a shock, but I can see he's not a bad guy." Alicia smiled. "I've always said Daniel has a good heart, even if he acts distant. He's been through a lot. And honestly, I think he's more sensitive than he lets on." Cassandra tried to focus on the event details, though she felt a flicker of curiosity. "He apologized earlier, and I could tell he was sincere." Alicia placed a hand on Cassandra's shoulder. "We can change your room if you like, but if you're comfortable there, that's fine." "I'm okay, I'll stay." "Thank you," Cassandra said. With that settled, they dove into more planning. The day passed in a blur of phone calls, emails, and vendor coordination. Cassandra was grateful for the distraction. Each time her thoughts drifted to Daniel, she forced them back to her spreadsheets and notes. She needed to keep a clear mind, especially if she was going to orchestrate a grand charity ball. Still, in the late afternoon, when she wandered into the hallway, she felt her heart skip a beat at the thought of running into him. She wondered if he was in his study, or perhaps had gone out on business. She told herself she was simply nervous about any awkward encounters. But somewhere deep inside, she knew there was also a small thrill at the possibility of seeing him again. That evening, Alicia approached Cassandra with a gentle invitation. "I'm cooking dinner. Nothing fancy. Just a cozy meal in the smaller dining room. Daniel's going to be there. Would you like to join us? It might help clear the air." Cassandra hesitated. Her rational side told her to keep her distance, but she did not want to appear rude, nor did she want to spend another meal alone in her room. So she nodded and agreed. At 7 o'clock, she made her way to the smaller dining room. The estate had multiple eating areas, but the smaller one was far more intimate, usually reserved for family meals. A single chandelier hung overhead, casting a warm glow on the round wooden table. A vase of yellow flowers sat in the center. Alicia was busy carrying plates from the adjoining kitchen. She beamed at Cassandra and said, "Sit anywhere you like. I'm finishing up the sauce." Daniel was already at the table, standing politely. When Cassandra entered, he pulled out a chair for her. She thanked him quietly and sat. Silence settled between them. Cassandra felt the weight of the morning's event pressing down. Daniel cleared his throat, then tried to start a conversation. "Alicia tells me you're one of the best event planners in the state." She looked up, meeting his gaze briefly. "I've been doing it for some years now. I enjoy it." Daniel nodded. "You must have a great eye for detail. Whenever my sister plans events—" Cassandra felt a small smile tug at her lips. "She's very loyal, and I appreciate her confidence." They fell quiet again. Alicia soon returned with 3 plates of chicken in a creamy sauce, paired with vegetables and mashed potatoes. She sat down beside Cassandra, and they began to eat. At first, the meal was stiff. Alicia tried to steer the conversation, asking about Cassandra's background and experiences. Cassandra talked about a few events she had organized, sharing stories of bridezillas and last-minute disasters she had managed to fix. Daniel listened attentively. She caught glimpses of genuine curiosity in his eyes. He asked a few simple questions, his voice softer than she had heard before. "How do you stay calm when things go wrong? Do you ever lose your temper?" Cassandra grinned slightly. "Oh, I've lost my temper a few times, but never in front of the client. I've learned to keep a professional facade. Then later, I might vent to Alicia." Alicia laughed, nodding. "Yes, I get an earful, but she's a saint in front of the guests." They continued, and the tension eased. By the time dessert arrived, fresh fruit and ice cream, Cassandra felt more relaxed. She felt Daniel's gaze occasionally drift to her, and once or twice she caught him looking away quickly, as though embarrassed to be caught staring. The conversation turned to the charity ball. Daniel asked, "So, do you have big plans for the decorations? Alicia mentioned you want to do something unique this year." Cassandra brightened at the topic.
Yes.
"I've researched some local artists who make beautiful sculptures. We can rent a few pieces to place around the ballroom and the garden. It will tie in with the theme of art and community. Guests will be able to enjoy a small gallery experience while also contributing to the cause. I think it could be a nice touch." Daniel nodded thoughtfully, impressed. "That sounds perfect. Let me know if you need any contacts or extra funds. I want the event to be memorable and successful." "I appreciate that," she said. "I might call on you for some financial help if we need to place larger deposits." He smiled, looking pleased. For a moment, Cassandra thought she saw a flicker of vulnerability in his expression. It was as if he wanted to do more than just write a check. He wanted to be part of something bigger. By the end of dinner, they had exchanged a few more words, each one a step toward breaking the ice. When the meal concluded, Alicia excused herself to finalize a phone call, leaving Daniel and Cassandra alone at the table. Cassandra stood, ready to return to her room, but Daniel rose too and gently said, "Thank you for joining us tonight. And again, I'm truly sorry for what happened." She looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity in them. "Thank you for the apology," she replied. "I appreciate you trying to make me feel comfortable here." He nodded. They parted ways with a polite nod, but as Cassandra headed down the hallway, she realized her heart was beating just a little faster than normal. After all, she was here to plan an event, not to let her emotions get tangled up with a wealthy man. Yet, she could not shake the warmth she felt from that brief conversation. It lingered all through the night, filling her mind with thoughts she could not fully understand. Daniel could not sleep. He tossed and turned, memories of the day swirling in his head. He was glad Cassandra stayed for dinner. It offered a chance to speak with her in a normal setting. He replayed their conversation, the gentle laughter she shared with Alicia, and the subtle way her eyes lit up when she talked about her work. He wanted to see her smile more. For some reason, that goal had become important to him. But as he stared at the shadows on his ceiling, he also knew he had to be cautious. He had made a severe mistake by walking in on her. He did not want her to think he was pushing for something more than an apology, especially not so soon. Around midnight, he got up, slipped on a light sweater, and wandered through the halls. The estate was quiet. Most of the staff had gone to bed. He ended up in the library, a cozy room lined with shelves of books he collected over the years. He picked one at random, a travel guide about distant islands, and settled into a soft armchair. As he flipped through the pages, he tried to immerse himself in stories of distant beaches and turquoise waters. But his mind kept wandering back to Cassandra. The way she had folded her hands in her lap while talking, the smooth tone of her voice, the determined spark in her eyes. He closed the book, a frustrated sigh escaping his lips. He felt a powerful urge to talk to her again, but it was inappropriate to knock on her door at this hour. Besides, he had promised to keep his distance if she needed it. So he sat alone, gazing at the flickering light from a small lamp. Perhaps, he thought, it was time he let himself care for someone again, no matter how risky it felt. But first, he had to find a way to prove he was more than a rude intruder or a man overshadowed by his own wealth. He had to earn her trust. Eventually, he drifted off to sleep in that armchair, dreaming of dark eyes and quiet laughter, of a second chance that might blossom into something worth fighting for. Cassandra woke early, her mind already spinning with tasks for the charity ball. She decided to get some fresh air before starting the day. She slipped into comfortable clothes and went outside to explore the estate's grounds. The sun had just risen, casting a gentle light over the gardens. A thin mist clung to the grass, giving the surroundings a magical feel. She strolled among the manicured hedges and flower beds, admiring the dewdrops that sparkled on leaves. She was so lost in thought that she did not notice Daniel until she nearly walked into him. He stood near a stone bench, watching a fountain where water spilled gracefully into a basin. He turned when he sensed her presence, and their eyes locked. "Good morning," he said, sounding a bit surprised but also pleased. She offered a polite nod. "Morning. I didn't expect anyone else to be up this early." He shrugged. "I couldn't sleep well. Sometimes walking the grounds helps clear my head." Cassandra glanced at the fountain. "It's lovely out here. Peaceful." Daniel nodded, stepping aside to give her more room. They stood there, the soft rush of water filling the silence. Cassandra felt the cool morning breeze on her cheeks, and she noticed Daniel glance at her out of the corner of his eye. He cleared his throat gently. "I hope I'm not disturbing your private time." She shook her head, forcing a small smile. "No, it's fine. We can share the morning air." For a moment they just listened to the bubbling of the fountain. Then, as if drawn by curiosity, Cassandra turned to him. "You grew up here?" she asked, guessing his background. He shook his head. "No, I bought this estate a few years ago. My childhood was far more modest." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh? I assumed you came from old money." He let out a soft laugh. "I'm not that kind of millionaire. I worked my way up, made a few lucky decisions along the way." She nodded, finding herself intrigued. She had dealt with many wealthy clients who inherited their fortunes, and their attitudes were often haughty. Daniel seemed different. There was a humility in him that felt real. They chatted a bit more, the conversation slow and cautious, but with a subtle warmth beneath. Cassandra found herself enjoying the shared solitude. The garden, the rising sun, and the gentle conversation formed a moment that felt far removed from the awkwardness of the previous day. At one point, Daniel hesitated, then softly asked, "Would you like to walk a bit more? I can show you a hidden spot by the pond. It's quite nice when the sun's up." Cassandra hesitated. Part of her reminded her to keep her distance. Another part of her, the one that felt drawn to the kindness in his eyes, gave a silent nudge to accept. "All right," she said. "Show me." They walked side by side down a narrow path, the sound of birds singing in the trees overhead. The trail wound through a cluster of rose bushes. The surface of the water shimmered with golden light. They stood there, watching the koi fish dart beneath the surface. For a moment, neither spoke. Cassandra breathed in the scent of fresh grass and damp earth. She felt oddly calm, even though her mind told her she should be wary of letting her guard down. Daniel finally said, "I come here sometimes when I need to think. It's one of the reasons I chose this estate, because of all the hidden corners. It's like its own little world." She nodded. "I can see why you like it." He turned to her, his gaze sincere. "I'm really glad you decided to stay, Cassandra." She felt her stomach flutter slightly. "I'm just doing my job," she replied softly. "I know," he said, dipping his head. "But still, I'm glad." The conversation lingered in the air, a gentle and budding warmth that neither dared to name yet. They stood by the pond for a few more minutes, letting the morning sun cast its gentle rays upon them, as though silently blessing the start of a hesitant friendship. Over the following days, Cassandra immersed herself in the details of the charity ball. She worked closely with Alicia, making calls to caterers, selecting floral arrangements, and coordinating with the artists whose sculptures would be on display. Alicia admired her skill and often left her to handle the complex negotiations. Meanwhile, Daniel found reasons to linger around. He would check in on how the planning was going, or offer to expedite payments. He tried not to hover, but the desire to be near Cassandra was strong. One afternoon, Cassandra needed to visit the city to meet with a florist and finalize a sample arrangement. She was about to drive her rental car when Daniel approached, keys in hand. "I have to go into town anyway," he said. "If you want, I can drive you." Cassandra hesitated, then agreed. The ride was pleasant, with light traffic. She noticed he asked questions about her preferences. Was the temperature okay? Did she want certain music playing? Did she need him to pull over for a coffee? At the florist's shop, Cassandra went through the sample centerpieces, comparing color schemes. Daniel wandered around, watching her work. He was amazed at how seamlessly she communicated with the florist, describing the vision for the event with clarity and confidence. When she finally settled on a combination of white roses, eucalyptus, and soft lavender sprigs, she turned to Daniel, expecting him to be bored. Instead, she found him listening intently. "These smell wonderful," he said, leaning in to sniff the arrangement. "And I like the touch of lavender. It's subtle but distinct." Cassandra felt a small surge of satisfaction that he noticed. On the drive back, Daniel said, "I never realized how much detail goes into event planning. It's impressive." She shrugged modestly. "There's a lot behind the scenes. When it all comes together, people only see the final picture. They don't realize the hundreds of decisions it took." He glanced at her. "Well, I'm beginning to appreciate how much passion goes into your work. You have a knack for it. You're calm under pressure." She gave a small laugh. "I learned that from personal experience." He glanced over again, curiosity plain on his face. "Care to share?" She hesitated. Normally, she did not delve into personal stories with clients. So she recounted a brief story of an event where a power outage nearly ruined a wedding reception. She explained how she had to scramble to find a generator on short notice, rearranging schedules and smoothing over frantic guests. Daniel listened, nodding in understanding. "That must have been intense." "It was," she said, recalling the adrenaline. "But it taught me to always have a backup plan. Now I make sure every potential crisis has a solution waiting." When they returned to the estate, she thanked him for the ride. As she stepped out of the car, their eyes met. There was a moment of quiet, a brief spark that passed between Thema shared recognition that something was growing, even if they had not defined it yet. Later that week, Daniel hosted a small gathering for potential donors of the charity ball. It was a casual cocktail hour, intended to let people network and get a preview of the upcoming event. Cassandra attended to answer questions about the ball's theme and logistics. The drawing room was filled with chatter, as well-dressed men and women sipped drinks and exchanged pleasantries. Cassandra stood with Alicia, going over last-minute details, while Daniel mingled with the guests. At one point, Alicia introduced Cassandra to a wealthy couple, the Carmichaels, who were known to be generous donors. Cassandra greeted them kindly, describing the planned attractions at the ball. They seemed interested, but the wife, Mrs. Carmichael, wore a polite smile that did not reach her eyes. "So, you're the event planner?" Mrs. Carmichael asked, her tone slightly condescending. "Yes," Cassandra answered, keeping her composure. "I see," Mrs. Carmichael said, looking her up and down in a way that made Cassandra uncomfortable. Cassandra kept her smile, even though she sensed the subtle judgment in the woman's voice. "I've handled events larger than this, Mrs. Carmichael. I promise everything will be splendid." Mrs. Carmichael nodded, pursing her lips. "I'm sure." Before the conversation could go further, Daniel appeared at Cassandra's side, offering a friendly smile to the Carmichaels. "Everything going well?" he asked, a gentle but firm presence. Mrs. Carmichael's demeanor shifted slightly, becoming more cordial under Daniel's gaze. Yes, we're excited to see how the ball turns out," she said, her voice almost sweet. Daniel nodded, then turned to Cassandra. "Would you mind showing them the sample floral arrangement?" With a thankful glance toward Daniel, Cassandra led the couple away to see the arrangement. Once they were gone, Daniel exchanged a look with Alicia, who gave him a small, knowing nod. They both recognized the tension in Mrs. Carmichael's manner. Alicia felt her stomach twist, knowing that prejudices sometimes lingered in these high society circles. Still, the rest of the evening went smoothly. Cassandra handled questions with grace, and Daniel supported her whenever he saw a need. By the time the guests left, Cassandra felt emotionally drained, but also oddly touched by Daniel's protective behavior. She found herself alone on the terrace after the event, looking out at the moonlit gardens. She was processing the night's encounters, the subtle microaggressions, and the polite dismissals that people sometimes directed her way. She was used to it, but it never stopped hurting. She heard footsteps behind her, and Daniel's voice, low and gentle. "Are you all right?" She turned, meeting his concerned eyes. "I'm fine. Just thinking about tonight." He frowned. "I saw the way Mrs. Carmichael acted. I'm sorry you had to deal with that." She shrugged lightly, trying to brush it off. "It happens. I can't control people's biases. I just keep doing my job." Daniel stepped closer, the soft glow of the terrace lights accentuating the sincerity in his face. "It's not right," he said. "It makes me angry when I see someone treat you like that." Cassandra felt a flicker of warmth in her chest. "Thank you for caring, but I've learned how to navigate those situations. I refuse to let anyone make me feel inferior." He nodded, admiration shining in his eyes. "I respect that." They stood in silence, the night air cool. Cassandra wrapped her arms around herself as if shielding from a sudden chill. Daniel, noticing, offered her his jacket without a word. She hesitated, then accepted it, draping it over her shoulders. "Thanks," she whispered. A gentle moment passed, a closeness that felt both comforting and slightly charged. Cassandra realized her heart was beating faster. She wondered if Daniel could hear it. Then, breaking the silence, he said, If there's ever anything I can do to support you, please let me know." The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "I appreciate that, Daniel. Really, I do." They shared a soft smile. In that instant, the estate around them felt smaller, more intimate. 2 days before the ball, the estate bustled with activity. Trucks arrived with supplies, caterers came to set up in the kitchen, and decorators arranged centerpieces in the grand ballroom. Cassandra directed it all with calm efficiency, clipboard in hand, her phone buzzing non-stop. Daniel hovered in the background, stepping in when she needed something carried or a question answered. He admired how she could be everywhere at once, checking the tablecloths, sampling the appetizers, even helping guide the technicians setting up the sound system. Late in the afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. Trevor, Cassandra's ex-boyfriend. One of the staff members, uncertain, let him in when he claimed to be a friend. Cassandra froze when she saw him crossing the ballroom. Her chest tightened, old memories surfacing. Their relationship had ended badly. Trevor had been controlling, dismissive of her career, and jealous of her success. The last thing she needed was his presence here, especially when she was so close to finishing her biggest event of the year. She tried to keep her composure, stepping away from a group of caterers to speak to him privately. "Trevor, what are you doing here?" she asked, her tone tense. He smirked. "I heard you were planning a fancy event. Thought I'd come see what it's all about. Maybe I can help." She inhaled sharply. "I don't need your help. You shouldn't be here. How did you even find this place?" He shrugged, looking around the ornate room. "I have my ways. Besides, I miss you, Cass. We should talk." She tightened her grip on her clipboard. "We have nothing to talk about. I'm working. Please leave." He stepped closer, making her skin crawl. "Don't be like that. Let's get a drink, catch up. This could be good for your event, you know. I have connections." She clenched her jaw, remembering how he used to belittle her goals and overshadow her achievements with his own bragging. She had no desire to go down that road again. That was when Daniel appeared at her side, a quiet but firm presence. He placed a hand lightly on Cassandra's shoulder, as if to steady her. Then he looked at Trevor, his voice calm but commanding. "Is there a problem here?" Trevor sized him up, eyes flicking to Daniel's expensive watch, his confident stance. "Who are you?" Daniel returned a cool gaze. "I'm Daniel, the owner of this estate, and you're trespassing." Trevor scoffed. "I'm just an old friend of Cassandra's. We were talking." Cassandra spoke up, her voice shaking slightly. "He's my ex. I asked him to leave, but he's not listening." Daniel's jaw tightened. He turned to Trevor with a quiet authority. "She wants you to go. I'm asking you to respect that. Now." Trevor's face hardened. For a moment, it seemed he might argue or even get aggressive, but then he looked around at the busy staff, realized he was out of his depth. "Fine," he snapped. "I was just trying to be nice." Without another word, he turned and stormed out. Cassandra exhaled, shoulders sagging as the tension drained. She felt Daniel's hand still on her shoulder, warm and reassuring. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, though her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I'm fine. He shouldn't have come." Daniel gently guided her toward a corner of the ballroom where they could have a moment of privacy. He grabbed a bottle of water from a nearby table and handed it to her. She took a sip, trying to steady her breathing. "Thank you. I'm sorry you had to witness that." He shook his head. "Don't apologize. He had no right to show up here uninvited." She managed a shaky smile. "I'm grateful you stepped in. I'm sure I could have handled it, but it's nice to have support." Daniel searched her face, his eyes filled with concern. "I'm always here if you need me." The weight of his words hung in the air. Cassandra felt something shift inside her. It was more than just gratitude. It was the realization that he cared for her, not just as a client or guest, but as someone whose well-being mattered to him. She thanked him again, then returned to her work, but the memory of that protective moment stayed with her, giving her a sense of comfort she had rarely felt before. Finally, the night of the charity ball arrived. The grand ballroom sparkled with lights and elegant decor. Sculptures were placed strategically around the room, each lit with soft spotlights. The tables were draped in pristine linens, and the floral centerpieces released a gentle fragrance. Musicians tuned their instruments at the corner stage, preparing to fill the air with live music. Guests began arriving in formal attire, stepping onto the red carpet laid out at the entrance. Cassandra watched from the side, directing staff, ensuring every detail was perfect. Alicia fluttered around excitedly, greeting donors and leading them to the silent auction area. Daniel stood near the entrance, welcoming the attendees with a gracious smile. He looked striking in a tailored black suit. Every so often, his gaze flicked across the room to find Cassandra, and each time their eyes met, he offered a gentle nod or a quiet smile. Cassandra herself wore a graceful, floor-length gown of deep emerald green. Her hair was styled in elegant waves, and her confidence glowed as she coordinated the final preparations. People came up to congratulate her on the setup, praising the ambiance, the decor, and the elegant touches that made the event stand out. As the ballroom filled with music and conversation, Cassandra felt a surge of pride. This was her craft at its highest level. Yet amid all the compliments, she found her attention constantly drawn to Daniel's presence. When the program began, Alicia took the microphone on stage, thanking everyone for their generosity. She introduced Daniel, who gave a short speech about the cause they were supporting: educational scholarships for underprivileged students. His words were sincere, and he spoke of his own background, how he understood the struggle of not having enough resources to pursue dreams. Cassandra listened, touched by the honesty in his voice. She realized how little she truly knew about Daniel's past, but what he shared resonated with her. She saw the eyes of the guests soften, an empathy spreading through the room. After the speeches, the music resumed, and people mingled or danced. Cassandra circulated, making sure everything stayed on schedule. As she passed by Daniel, he gently caught her arm. "You're doing great," he said softly. "This is all perfect." She smiled. "Thank you. It's been a team effort." He gestured to the dance floor where couples were beginning to sway in time with a slow melody. "Will you dance with me?" Her heart fluttered. She glanced around, seeing some guests watching them curiously. Part of her wanted to say no, to keep things strictly professional. But the emotion in Daniel's eyes and the warmth in his voice pulled at her. "All right," she said, placing her hand in his. They stepped onto the dance floor, the lights twinkling overhead. Daniel placed a hand gently on her waist, and she rested her other hand on his shoulder. The music enveloped them, a soft tune that made everything feel dreamy. Cassandra felt her heart pound. She breathed in Daniel's subtle cologne, recalling how safe she had felt when he intervened with Trevor. Now, under the soft lights, in the presence of so many people, it felt as if they were alone in a shared moment of tenderness. As they danced, Daniel leaned in slightly. "I know this might not be the best time," he said, voice low, "but I need to tell you something. To admire you." She met his gaze, her breath catching. "Daniel." He gently squeezed her hand. "I'm not trying to push anything, but I can't pretend I don't feel something for you. And it's not just guilt over what happened before. It's genuine. But I respect your boundaries. I just needed you to know." Warmth bloomed in her chest. For a moment, she couldn't speak, her emotions colliding. "Thank you for telling me. I feel something too, but let's take it slow, okay?" He nodded, relief, and a hint of joy brightening his face. They continued dancing, the room fading away until the music ended. When the song finished, they parted gently. But the electricity of that moment lingered, weaving itself into the atmosphere of the entire evening. The charity ball was a resounding success. Guests raved about the decor, the food, and the entertainment. Generous donations poured in, exceeding expectations. By midnight, the last of the attendees began to trickle out, leaving behind a satisfied hum of excitement. Cassandra, exhausted but thrilled, oversaw the cleanup with the staff. Alicia was jubilant, hugging Cassandra and praising her work. "You did it again," she declared. "This was your best event yet." Daniel joined them, a tired smile on his face. "Outstanding job. We've raised more funds than ever before." Everyone pitched in to help the staff, removing centerpieces and storing decorations. Cassandra took a moment to rest in a corner, her feet aching in her high heels. Daniel approached, handing her a glass of water. She thanked him, sipping gratefully. "I can't believe we pulled it off without a single disaster." He chuckled. "That's all you and your genius planning? I just funded it." She shot him a playful look. "Don't underestimate your speech. It really touched people." He looked away, modest. Well, it came from a sincere place. They shared a brief silence, filled with mutual appreciation. Cassandra then got up to continue helping the staff. As she crossed the ballroom, her phone buzzed. She checked the screen and felt her stomach sink. A text from Trevor. "I'm not done talking to you. Meet me outside, or I'll cause a scene." Her heart skipped a beat. She glanced around, anxiety flooding her veins. She did not want to involve Daniel or Alicia in this mess. Maybe if she went outside and told Trevor firmly to leave once and for all, he would back down. Without telling anyone, Cassandra slipped out a side entrance. The night air was cold, and the parking lot was nearly empty except for a few remaining cars. Trevor stood by a black sedan, hands in his pockets, eyes glinting in the dim light. "You actually showed up," he said, smirking. Cassandra kept her distance. "I'm not here for a fight. Just leave. You have no business here." He took a step closer, a menacing air about him. "I came to warn you. I hear you're getting close with your rich boss. That's quite a step up from the last men you dated." She clenched her fists. "What I do is none of your concern. Go away, Trevor." He laughed, a harsh sound in the quiet night. "You're nothing but a social climber, Cass. Don't think I don't see it." Her face burned with anger. "You're wrong. And even if you weren't, it's my life. You have no right to barge in." He lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. "You always were too proud. Maybe I should remind you who you really are." Fear shot through her. She tried to pull away, but his grip was tight. "Let go of me!" she hissed. Suddenly, there was a flash of movement, and Trevor was yanked back by a strong hand. "Get your hands off her," Daniel growled. Trevor stumbled, glaring at Daniel. "Stay out of this!" Daniel planted himself in front of Cassandra, shielding her. "You have no right to put your hands on her." His voice was low, like a warning. Trevor sneered. "You think your money makes you so tough? I can see right through you." Daniel's eyes darkened, fists clenched. "If you don't leave right now, I'll call the police, and you'll spend the night in jail for assault." Trevor hesitated, looking at Cassandra, then at Daniel. He seemed to weigh his options. Finally, with a bitter twist of his mouth, he spat on the ground. "Fine. But this isn't over, Cass." He got into his car and revved the engine, speeding out of the lot. Cassandra stood there, shaking slightly, her wrist throbbing where Trevor had grabbed it. Daniel turned to her, concern etched across his face. "Are you all right?" he asked gently, reaching for her arm to check for bruises. She nodded, tears threatening to spill. "Yes." He pulled her close, wrapping an arm around her trembling shoulders. She let herself lean against him, grateful for the warmth and safety he provided. In that moment, she felt a rush of gratitude and something deeper, a sense that Daniel would go to great lengths to protect her. But a part of her also felt a spike of fear. Trevor's threat lingered in the air. Was he really done, or would he come back with something worse? The suspense weighed on her. She clutched Daniel's sleeve, drawing strength from him. "We should go inside," he whispered. "And we're alerting the security team?" She nodded, and they walked back into the estate together, the night's victory overshadowed by a dark cloud of uncertainty. That same night, Daniel insisted Cassandra remain in a more secure part of the mansion. He personally arranged for a guard to monitor the main entrances. Alicia, shocked to hear what had happened, stayed by Cassandra's side too. Cassandra did her best to put on a brave face, but Trevor's return haunted her. She remembered all the ways he used to manipulate and belittle her. The idea that he might cause more trouble weighed heavily on her heart. Daniel did not press her for details. He simply offered her comfort, a quiet presence that did not demand explanations. Around 2 in the morning, when the staff had nearly finished cleaning up the ballroom, Daniel found Cassandra in the library. He approached softly. "You should get some rest," he said. "It's been a long night." She turned to him, sighing. "I know, but I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I think of him showing up again." Daniel gently guided her to one of the armchairs. He sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I could have someone drive you to a safe place, like a hotel, or arrange private security if you prefer." She shook her head. "I don't want to run. That's what he wants, to intimidate me. I've worked hard to stand on my own 2 feet, and I won't let him push me off." Daniel nodded. "I admire your strength. But just know, whatever you decide, you're not alone." A hint of a sad smile crossed her lips. "Thank you, Daniel." They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner. Finally, Cassandra took a deep breath. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." She hesitated, then spoke in a soft voice. "Why do you care so much about me? I mean, I know we've had our moments, but you don't owe me anything." Daniel studied her face. "I care because I see a kind, talented person who deserves respect. I care because every time I'm around you, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. You make me want to be better, to shed the walls I built around myself." Cassandra's eyes welled with tears. No one had ever told her something like that. She reached out, placing her hand over his. He turned his hand to gently hold hers. "We all do, but we can unpack it together if you let me." She exhaled, a shaky breath that carried both relief and lingering fear. "I'd like that." In that quiet library, they leaned toward each other. The moment was heavy with unspoken feelings, the chemistry that had grown between them over the days. Slowly, hesitantly, Daniel leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to her lips. Cassandra felt her heart thunder in her chest. She closed her eyes, returning the gentle kiss. It felt like a promise of safety, acceptance, and hope. When they pulled apart, she saw warmth in his gaze that made her chest feel light. They did not speak further, for words were not needed. The night stretched on, but within the glow of that tender moment, they found a pocket of peace to share. The next day, Cassandra woke feeling a swirl of emotions. Happiness at her blossoming connection with Daniel, fear over Trevor's threat, and exhaustion from the events of the previous night. Yet she had to keep functioning. The charity ball might have ended, but she still had post-event tasks to handle. Daniel was up early as well, coordinating with his security team to ensure that if Trevor returned, he would be intercepted. He also began making calls to a trusted private investigator, just in case they needed to file a restraining order. Cassandra appreciated his thoroughness, But part of her felt guilty. She did not want to disrupt Daniel's life with her personal troubles. Later that morning, as she and Alicia were going through leftover decorations, a staff member approached. "Miss Cassandra, there's someone at the gate asking for you," he said, looking uncomfortable. Cassandra's heart skipped. "Who is it?" The staff member held out a note. "He said his name is Trevor. He asked me to give you this." She took the note with trembling fingers, unfolding it. The note read, "Talk to me, or I'll talk to the press. I have a story they'd love how the big-time planner is sleeping her way to the top with a millionaire." Anger and fear tightened her throat. Alicia peered over her shoulder, letting out a gasp. "That's disgusting!" Cassandra crumpled the note in her hand. "I can't believe he's stooping this low." Alicia squeezed Cassandra's arm. "What are you going to do?" Cassandra bit her lip. "I won't negotiate with him. He'll just keep pushing. But if he tells the press some twisted story, it could hurt my reputation and Daniel's as well." Alicia frowned. "We can't let him bully you. Let Daniel know." Part of Cassandra hesitated. She did not want to burden Daniel further, but she realized this was not just about her anymore. If Trevor spread lies, it could harm Daniel's image, Alicia's efforts, and the charities they supported. So she went to find Daniel in his office. He was on the phone, but when he saw her expression, he quickly ended the call. She handed him the note. He read it, jaw clenching. "This is blackmail. He wants attention or money." She nodded. "I don't know what to do. I don't want to give in." Daniel stood, pacing the room. "We can have our legal team handle this. We could file a restraining order and a defamation threat if he dares to go public with lies." Cassandra's eyes glistened with tears she refused to shed. "He's been a thorn in my life, but I never thought he'd go this far." Daniel stopped pacing, pulled her gently into an embrace. "He's desperate. He must see he has no real power over you now, so he's resorting to threats. But we won't let him ruin anything." She inhaled his calming scent, grateful for his support. "Thank you, Daniel." He pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "We'll sort this out. You're not alone in this fight." They spent the next hour coordinating with a lawyer and a security consultant. Alicia joined them, providing moral support. The consensus was to stand firm, do not give in to Trevor's demands, and be ready to respond legally if he tried to slander Cassandra or Daniel. Cassandra still felt a knot of anxiety. She worried about how far Trevor might go, but seeing Daniel's determination eased her fear. He was resolute in protecting her, no matter the cost. That evening, as shadows lengthened across the estate, Cassandra found herself unable to rest. She wandered the corridors, eventually ending up outside on the terrace. Gazing at the distant lights of the city, she heard a soft footstep behind her and turned to see Daniel. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "Too much on my mind." He joined her at the railing, looking out at the moonlit landscape. "I understand." They stood quietly for a while, each lost in thought. Then Cassandra spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to tell you something. About Trevor. About why it's so hard for me to face him." Daniel turned to her, eyes full of understanding. "I'm listening." She swallowed, gathering courage. "He wasn't just controlling. He made me doubt myself, made me feel small, like I was nothing without him. He used to say terrible things whenever I had a success, telling me it was just luck or pity from others. He claimed no one would love me for who I am. And for a time, I believed him." Daniel reached for her hand, holding it gently. Cassandra continued, tears glistening. "I broke it off when I realized I could survive on my own. But ever since, he's tried to pull me back, reminding me of my worst fears. Every now and then, I still hear his voice in my head, telling me I'm not good enough." Daniel's face was filled with compassion. He squeezed her hand. "I'm so sorry, Cassandra. You deserve love and respect, always. Nothing he said was true. She turned away, tears slipping down her cheeks. A part of me knows that. But it's like these scars never fully heal. And now I'm pulling you and Alicia into this mess. He gently lifted her chin, making her look at him. His voice was firm yet caring. You are not a burden. You didn't ask for this. And I want to be here for you, however I can. I know it's not easy to trust, but I promise I won't let you down. She let out a trembling breath. You're too kind, Daniel. It's not kindness, he said, brushing a tear from her cheek. It's something more. He leaned in, and she rose to meet him. Their lips touched in a tender kiss, the night sky witnessing their quiet vow of support and affection. In that moment, she felt the heavy chains of doubt loosen a little more. Over the next week, Cassandra worked to finalize any remaining tasks from the ball. Donations were processed, thank you notes sent, and the financial outcome was better than anyone expected. Many children would benefit from the scholarships they funded. Trevor, however, stayed silent. Neither Daniel nor Cassandra received any messages from him. The lawyer advised they remain vigilant, but it seemed Trevor had backed off for the moment. With the ball wrapped up, Cassandra prepared to leave the estate. She had new clients waiting, other events to plan. Yet a part of her did not want to go. Her bond with Daniel had deepened, and she cherished the quiet moments they spent together, sharing thoughts and dreams. One evening, as she packed her belongings in the guest room, Daniel knocked on her door. She opened it, and he stepped inside, glancing at the half-packed suitcase on the bed. Leaving soon? He asked, a note of sadness in his voice. She nodded. I have to. My next project is in the city. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking uncertain. Listen, I know we haven't known each other for a long time, but I don't want this to end just because you're not staying here anymore. She smiled softly. I don't want it to end either. He let out a small breath of relief. Then let's find a way to continue. Let me take you out for dinner. Or I can come visit you in the city. I don't want us to lose what we have. She reached out, brushing her fingertips along his arm. I'd like that, and I'll come back here whenever you want me to. You have these beautiful gardens, after all. Daniel chuckled, a warm sound that made her heart lift. The garden and a fully stocked library. I might even let you borrow any book you want. She laughed gently, appreciating his humor. Then the laughter faded into a quiet moment of sincerity. Thank you, Daniel. You've shown me so much kindness, I'm grateful. His expression turned serious. I just wish I could protect you from everything. Trevor, the judgments of society, all of it. She shook her head. I don't need you to shield me from everything. I just need you by my side. They shared a soft kiss, a promise lingering in the air between them. The next day, Cassandra packed up her things in the trunk of her car. Alicia gave her a warm hug, promising to visit soon. Daniel stood by, hands in his pockets, looking a bit forlorn. Call me when you get home, he said, his voice gentle. I will, she promised, and I'll be back to see you soon. He nodded, stepping closer. Drive safe. She slipped into the driver's seat, started the engine, and waved goodbye. As she pulled away from the estate, her heart felt full and light, despite the lingering worries about Trevor's possible return. She had found a connection with Daniel that felt real, and she wanted to nurture it. Over the following weeks, they stayed in touch through calls and messages. Daniel made trips to the city to take her out to dinner, or just to walk in the park. Cassandra found herself looking forward to his visits more than she wanted to admit. Trevor kept quiet. The lawyer kept a close eye on any rumors or threats, but nothing emerged. It seemed he had vanished as quickly as he appeared. In time, Daniel invited Cassandra to attend a gala in another part of the country, where he was being honored for his philanthropic work. She agreed, and they traveled together, stepping more boldly into the public eye as a couple. Some eyebrows were raised. Daniel was a prominent businessman, and Cassandra was an African-American woman who had made her mark through hard work and talent. But they faced the whispers with grace, determined to stand together. Just when life seemed to settle into a peaceful rhythm, Cassandra received an anonymous tip from a friend in the media. A rumor was circulating that Trevor was shopping a story to tabloids, claiming Cassandra seduced wealthy clients to climb the social ladder. He had photos of them dancing at the charity ball, images which he hoped to twist as evidence of her manipulative ways. The story had not been published yet, but it was a ticking time bomb. Cassandra felt sick. The idea of her reputation being dragged through the mud by a bitter ex made her furious and frightened. She immediately called Daniel, who was in the middle of a meeting. He stepped out to take her call. When she told him the news, she heard his steady resolve. "We'll handle it. Don't panic." They met at his penthouse in the city that evening, along with Alicia and the lawyer. The lawyer confirmed the rumor, saying that no publication had run the story yet, possibly because they lacked credible evidence. Alicia fumed. "This is ridiculous. Anyone who knows Cassandra knows how hard-working and honest she is." Daniel placed a calming hand on Alicia's shoulder. "We'll release a statement if it goes public, but let's see if we can stop it before it goes that far. Our private investigator might help locate Trevor and persuade him to back down." Cassandra sat quietly, feeling powerless. Daniel reached for her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Trust me," he said softly. "We'll fight this together." A week passed, tension growing daily. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, Cassandra got a frantic text from the investigator. "We found Trevor. He's meeting with a tabloid journalist at a downtown cafe to sell the story. Daniel and I are heading there now." Cassandra's pulse raced. She hurried to the location, heart pounding in her chest. When she arrived, she saw Daniel and the investigator standing outside the cafe. Through the window, they watched Trevor seated with a woman who appeared to be a reporter. Cassandra felt a wave of anger and nausea. She wanted to burst in and confront him, but Daniel held her back. "Let's handle this carefully," he warned. The investigator entered the cafe first, approaching the table calmly. Cassandra and Daniel followed a moment later. The reporter seemed startled, looking between Trevor and the newcomers. Trevor's expression soured immediately. "What do you think you're doing?" Trevor hissed, glaring at Cassandra and Daniel. Daniel spoke, his tone controlled but stern. "I'm here to set the record straight. If you publish any lies about Cassandra, we will sue you for defamation. We have proof of your past harassment and blackmail attempts." The reporter's eyes widened, clearly realizing she might be stepping into a lawsuit if she continued. She looked at Trevor, who sputtered, "He's bluffing." Cassandra stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. "No, Trevor, we're not bluffing. We have a trail of your messages and threats. We have eyewitnesses to your aggression. If you push this any further, it will ruin you, not me." Trevor's face reddened. He tried to regain his composure, but the reporter was already gathering her things, muttering something about legal issues. She stood, giving Trevor a disgusted look. "I'm not getting sued over this. I'm out." She left the cafe in a hurry. Trevor rose, eyes full of rage. He glared at Cassandra. "This isn't fair. You humiliated me, left me with nothing, and now you're turning everyone against me." Cassandra steadied herself. "You humiliated yourself. You made your choices. I'm done being afraid of you." Trevor looked like he wanted to lash out, but Daniel stepped closer, a menacing edge to his stance. "If you come near her again, or try to spread lies, I promise you'll face the consequences." Trevor glanced at Daniel, then at the investigator, and then at Cassandra. He saw that he was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. With a frustrated snarl, he stormed out of the cafe, pushing past other customers as he went. A heavy silence settled in his wake. Cassandra felt tears pricking her eye steers of relief, anger, and exhaustion. Daniel guided her to a nearby chair, and she sank into it, heart hammering. He knelt beside her, brushing a tear from her cheek. "It's over," he said gently. "He has no power now." She nodded, still trembling. "Thank you," she whispered, voice choked with emotion. The investigator confirmed that with the tabloid link broken and the threat of a lawsuit looming, Trevor would find it nearly impossible to sell his false story. It seemed the storm had finally passed. A few days later, Cassandra and Daniel found themselves at a small, cozy restaurant, celebrating the end of the ordeal. Alicia joined them, smiling ear to ear. They toasted with glasses of sparkling juice, sharing a quiet victory. "I can't believe how far we've come," Alicia said, eyes shining with pride for both her best friend and her brother. From that awkward start at the estate to whatever this is now. Cassandra and Daniel exchanged a warm glance. It was indeed remarkable. Their relationship, born from an unexpected and embarrassing accident, had weathered misunderstandings, old wounds, and outside threats. Yet here they were, side by side, hearts open. After dinner, Daniel offered Cassandra a walk along the nearby riverbank. The evening sky was clear, the stars reflected in the calm water. They strolled hand in hand, the soft night breeze carrying a hint of spring's warmth. They came to a stop beneath a street lamp that bathed them in gentle light. Daniel turned to her, taking both her hands in his. "These past weeks have been overwhelming, but I've never felt more sure about something in my life." Cassandra looked up at him, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" He smiled, his eyes full of affection. "You. Us." Her cheeks grew warm. "I care about you too. Maybe it's fast, but I feel at peace with you." Daniel exhaled, relieved. He brought her hands to his lips, pressing a soft kiss. "Let's figure out the future together, one step at a time." She nodded, tears of happiness filling her eyes. "I'd like that." They embraced, the light of the street lamp casting a gentle glow over them. With the past behind them and a hopeful road ahead, they stood on the bank of the peaceful river, ready to begin a life shaped by respect, understanding, and a love that had blossomed under the most unexpected circumstances. In that tender moment, they knew that, though the journey had been filled with uncertainty and pain, the ending was theirs to write, and it was bound to be a happy one.